MMA Boxing Talk here, coming at you with another video. I just want to put out a little video, kind of a UFC 196 aftermath. It's been about 10, 11 days since UFC 196 took place. That was apparently the highest pay-per-view buys in UFC history. It exceeded UFC 100, which did 1.6 million pay-per-view buys. And apparently UFC 196 has already about 3-4 days ago. I heard it was at 1.5, but the numbers still come in because the pay-per-view can be sold even after the event took place. So I think it will. People are saying it's trending to beat UFC 100. But regardless of that, whether it's the first or the second biggest pay-per-view card in the history of the UFC. There's obviously been there was a lot of buzz around that event. There's been a lot of talk since. You got fans on one side, fans on the other side. You got the neutral people in the middle that try to be, unbiased. But it's you see a lot of comments. You see a lot of people's opinions and perspectives that they don't really understand the sport like a hardcore fan would. So I just want to talk about a couple of Nate Diaz quotes actually, and just like I said, recap a little aftermath of UFC 196. This won't be a long video, so just listen up. So the one quote I saw, SportsCenter on Instagram put out a little thing, Nate Diaz quote, because obviously he's been complaining that people aren't giving him the respect that he deserves, and people are making excuses for Conor McGregor's loss and things like that. And for the record, Nate Diaz deserves all the credit in the world for this fight. He won it. He took it on short notice, and he got the job done. He stopped McGregor in the second round. So anyway, one of the quotes Nate Diaz said, there are 5 rounds in a fight. Who gives a shit if you won a round? You lost. And he's basically saying that to the people that are, the fans, the haters that are making all these excuses and not giving him the credit he deserves. And he's absolutely right. McGregor might have won the first round, but he didn't win the fight. So anyway, just wanted to touch on that a little bit. Now, there's also another. I gotta find it here. It's a little article. Nate Diaz was speaking with MMA Junkie. Okay, so here's the quote from Nate Diaz. If you've got to tap out, you got to tap out, Diaz told MMA Junkie. I think Holly Holm, she thought she was maybe going to get out of her choke that Miesha Tate had on her. She had already gone out of one choke earlier in the fight, and she thought maybe, I'm not quitting, maybe I could get out of this one, talking about Holly Holm and Miesha Tate. McGregor was fucking done all the way. It's alright, he had to tap out because there was no getting out of that. I don't think there's anything wrong with tapping out. Now, it went on to say, but that was the end of Diaz's quote. And then it went on to say, the Diaz finish over McGregor marks his record-setting 9th submission victory in modern UFC competition. That means he knows better than anyone on the roster what it's like to be locked up in a choke so tight or twist a limb in such a grisly fashion that an opponent is forced to exit the contest. So basically what they're saying there is that, if anyone knows, if someone should have tapped or not, it's Nate Diaz. It's a jiu-jitsu black belt, someone who is, his number one facet of Nate Diaz, the best facet of his game is submissions. So if anyone would know, it's him, right? And he said, in the quote, he said, McGregor was fucking done all the way. It's all right. He had to tap out because there was no getting out of that. I don't think there's anything wrong with tapping out. And, we have a lot of fans that are, saying, oh, McGregor's a bitch for tapping and all these things. Well, let's be clear here. When you know that you're in, a choke so tight and you're not getting out of it, I mean, it's just something that you've done it so many times in training. You know the feeling. Everyone's been submitted in training before, right? And so they know the feeling when they don't have a chance. And Diaz is right. Holly Holm, she got out of the first one in round 2. Maybe she thought, I can get out of this one. And let's be honest, Diaz's submission game is a hell of a lot better than Miesha Tate's, right? So, obviously, like he said, he had, his neck cranked. It was choked. He was choked right out. And another thing, too, you got to take in consideration, right? I mean, McGregor he was very gassed. He was tired. And then he got hurt on the feet before they went to the ground, right? So he had been wobbled pretty severely before he went to the ground. Where Holly Holm, that wasn't the case, right? She still had her wits, her senses about her. Where McGregor, I mean, let's be honest, Conor McGregor went for a double leg takedown. I mean, obviously he wasn't thinking straight. He didn't have his wits about him, because Conor McGregor doesn't go for double leg takedowns, especially against a submission guy, someone who's awesome on his back. So anyway, just wanted to put out a little video, talking, because you got some people saying not giving Diaz any credit, and Diaz deserves all the credit, and then you got people saying Conor McGregor's a bitch for tapping out and all these things. Well, Nate Diaz isn't even saying that, and Conor McGregor talked shit about him, disrespected Nate Diaz. I mean, he gave him some respect before the fight, but he said some things, and it'd be easy for Nate Diaz to just say, "Oh, he is a bitch for tapping," but he knows the sport, he understands the sport, and he's absolutely right. McGregor should have tapped. I mean, there's nothing to gain out of getting choked out. You know what I mean? Holly Holm didn't gain nothing from that. I mean, you got to respect it, but anyway, it's just there's no shame in tapping. When you know you're done, you're done. You tap. That's just the way it is. And it. Not to mention, when you do get choked out and you black out and you don't tap, you know how much more damage that does? Brain cells, just brain damage. Period. You know what I mean? It's not good at all. So, Conor McGregor, he tapped. He surrendered under Nate Diaz, and at the press conference afterwards, he showed up. He actually showed up. A lot of people don't show up, or when they do, they're just a shell of themselves, and they're very emotional and things like that. Conor McGregor, he was emotional to a certain extent, but he showed up. He was a man, and he answered all the questions, and he took his defeat gracefully. He took his defeat like a man. So you got to give him credit, and you got to remember too. He could have chose, after RDA pulled out. He could have chose to say, you know what, I'm not going to fight anyone on short notice. You know what I mean? John Jones has done it. And who else? Fabricio Verdum just did it, the heavyweight champion of the world. And he's arguably one of the best heavyweight champions of all time. He beat Fedor, he beat Cain Velasquez. So, anyway, there's, he put the show on for the fans, and he took a chance, he rolled the dice, and, he went out swinging at least. But, anyway, just wanted to put out a little video, giving my thoughts, because, there's been a lot that's been said after the fight. But yeah, so I mean, like I said, Nate Diaz deserves all the credit. Conor McGregor deserves credit for what he did. But, a loss is a loss. He lost fair and square. So that's just what it is. But if you like the video, subscribe. That's it for this one. MMA Boxing Talk. Peace.